It is now my honor to introduce our next plenary speaker, Dalton Dagondon Tiegs. Dalton immigrated from the Philippines in 2008 to Idaho, where their adopted father and mother found a home in Nampa. They're in their final year at Boise State University studying ethnic studies. They're employed at the Idaho Coalition Against Sexual and Domestic Violence, where they work to center the lived experiences of the most vulnerable in their communities. Dalton believes that a world where everyone is valued is entirely possible and is on the way soon. Please join me in welcoming Dalton Dagondon Tiegs.
Oh wow, there's a lot of people here. Mayong adlaw. Good morning. Before I'd like to start, similarly to Kaitisha, I'd like to honor the indigenous communities that once roamed and cared for the land and continue caring for the land. Specifically to Orange County, the Ashashtaman Nation resided on this land prior to all of this. It's important to recognize that we are not indigenous to this land. If we're not indigenous to this land, we are on stolen lands. Our work moving forwards to end gender-based violence, if we haven't already, must center the narratives of displacement, the survival, and resistance of indigenous peoples. I'd like to thank Sandra, David, and the Calcasa team for inviting me to speak about bold moves to end gender-based violence. I believe that in the deepest of my hearts, that as a collective, we are able to end gender-based violence. The urgency is definitely there. I live and work in Boise, Idaho, where we are exploring new ways of being in community together. We, as a community, are exploring new ways of being together to end gender-based violence and all other forms of oppression. Our collective liberation is intricately connected. Immigration work to protect immigrants and people who are resettled through the refugee program is gender justice. Recognizing how race and colonization exploit indigenous people, people of color, and the earth is gender justice. Creating a world that is accessible to everyone is gender justice. Understanding the beauty and power of my queer, trans, intersex, and two-spirit siblings is gender justice. Now, I am not asking you to show up to every rally, but do show up to the March for Black Women's Lives thing. Or to go to every lobbying session to fight the power in the system. As a student, I literally do not have the time for all of that, but I will make sure I will be there at some point. I will also add that there are many ways to move towards liberation, that of which includes self-care and how we take care of ourselves. If we want to work towards a world where everyone is valued and cherished so that they can reach our fullest potentials, we have to expand our definitions of justice. We have to end all forms of oppression to truly live in a world where gender violence does not exist. We have to carefully push the limits, if not transcend our neatly siloed pools of work. It's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take all of us for that to change. My healing, jaded heart would love to believe, for delusional reasons, that I will be one of the last to be sexually assaulted. My heart grows heavy, and it grows with light when I am in community. In Idaho, we are working to explore what it means to find new ways of being, recognizing that it will take a lot of work from all of us. I'm especially grateful for Kalkasa, my organization, and my professors for allowing myself, Katisha, and Melody to showcase the brilliance and power of young people. A strategist that my organization works with, named Norma Wong, said that we must not just be against something as a movement. We have to work towards a world where we want to live in, to name the world that we want to create with everyone and with the wisdom of our ancestors and future descendants. This new, verdant, healing-centered, emergent new world, what does it feel like? What does it look like? What kind of communities do we live in this new world? What does it smell like? How are places of learning in this new world? What does it sound like? How do we heal generational trauma in this new world? These are the questions that youth in our Youth Activist Network are asking. These are the questions that 40 urban and rural Idaho youth are wondering about our future. How can we create this world together? I am not here to remind everyone of our mortality and convince y'all with statistics and measurable data on why we should invest in young people. I am here to ensure that we have a common horizon to collectively work towards, to ensure that our movement is grounded in the liberation of the last girl, or the person who faces the most barriers within our communities. Cultivating power with young people means more than finding ways for them to get involved, more than busy work. It has to be work that is meaningful so that the work continues long after we're gone. In my bio, I mentioned that I'm an immigrant to this country. English is not my first language, and I am certain I cannot give this speech in my mother tongue. I will be working on that next so that I can take the work that I'm doing here to my people. I hope one day we're able to experience the narratives of struggle and resilience in many different languages. I also want to challenge and reimagine the way we work with and be in solidarity with young people. Young people are capable. We have been at the forefront of every social change movement in history. We do not need to be shielded from the harsh realities of this world, because unfortunately, the world that we live in does not spare us. Yes, we may find that finding developmentally appropriate ways of explaining how harsh our world is might be difficult at times, but we may have to reconsider if we cannot explain the reality of this world. Young people have skin in the game. Let's form intergenerational partnerships to co-create this world. We can start by compensating young people for their labor fairly. Please pay your interns, and please have snacks at your offices. I would not be in the place that I am in now would it not been the work of my mentors and ancestors. I am not the exception. I played along with the narrative, with the narratives of being an exceptional student and then the model immigrant. And in that time of my life, I believed that I was special, that somehow my straight A's and accolades meant that I am worthy of more recognition than my peers. And for a while, I did believe that. It was easy to take compliments of being eloquent and being mature for my age as a reason to buy into a world where we place people in a hierarchy. Being an only child didn't help either. High up on my pedestal was not healthy. I was obsessed with perfectionism, a habit of dominant culture, and was unhappy when I could not meet those unrealistic expectations. My learning relationships with people are not limited to the following, but here are some ways my colleagues and I practice being in an intergenerational community. With my director, Kelly Miller, Mother of Dragons, we're exploring ways of how to work within containers and how to do liberation work strategically. This work is urgent, this work is long. With Mika, a healer and visionary, we're learning how to hold on to anger and hope simultaneously. With Silly, Jeff, and Brian, together they and I are learning what deeper solidarity with men and white people might be like. This work is painful at times, and this work will build power. With my Latinx closer in age siblings, Jennifer, Laura, and Estefania, we're learning to organize within our rural communities with tenacity, healing, and love. This work is met with opposition. This work is energizing. With my joyous cackling supervisor, Meche, we're exploring what it means to show up with our whole selves and how to take care of our bodies as we work. This work is taxing, this work is energizing. With my Friday night going out partner and logistics extraordinaire, Yara, we're exploring what it means to have multiple identities and joy as practice. This work is hard, this work is emergent. This work is messy, challenging, frustrating, and non-linear. As an organization, when we hire new people, we usually tell them it's pretty normal for people to cry in the office, and we encourage them to cry with us. In 1996, my mother was repeatedly assaulted by her employer and then became pregnant. She did not have access to a safe abortion and sought refuge and survived with her friends who let her stay in her home until she got back on her feet. In 1997, 2 days after her 21st birthday, my mother birthed and loved me into this world. No family were present, just her friends who she was staying with. She sold and pawned her jewelry so that she could pay for the hospital bill. A week later, she went home to her island to raise me with her sister and her mother. Shortly after that, my mother and her abusive older brother healed her wounds knowing that violence would not be good for a baby. And in 2004, my mom met a white person. And though the paperwork indicates differently, my mom and I like to say that we adopted my dad, because he's the one that looks different. My family has always been loving towards me. The adoption papers took 4 years. In 2008, we moved to Nampa, Idaho. In Nampa, I felt really fresh off the boat. I was always one of the 2 brown children in a classroom made for white children. In middle school, Mr. Darlington, my literature teacher, introduced me to feminism and asked questions about why might different people get treated differently. In 2014, Fatima, who had been an intern at the Idaho Coalition at that time, approached me and then asked if I wanted to have an internship. I said maybe, and then she said it was paid. I said I would interview at the Idaho Coalition the following week. Fatima encouraged me to do social justice work with the Idaho Coalition and encouraged me to live into my queerness. My ancestors did some major networking to connect and guide me to these people. There are countless amount of people who lead me here right now. I did not get here myself, even if I wanted to. I will not leave today and into the future by myself. It took a community, one on each side of the world, beyond borders, with people that dared to be bold in finding new ways of being. Thank you.